Hey everyone, welcome back to Shiny Circuit. Today's video is a little different. We're not hunting deals or exploring stores. We're just hanging out in the game room. Over the last while, I've been building up my retro handheld collection. Some of these systems I grew up with, some of them I never owned as a kid, and some of them I'm discovering for the first time. But all of them I'm actively collecting for in 2025. So today we're going to go through all of them. All of them from new Nintendo 3DS, Game Boy Advance SP, Game Boy Color, PS Vita, PSP, and the Switches. Also at the end of the video, I'll show you how I'm displaying everything in a new cabinet I picked up. So grab a drink, sit back, and let's talk handhelds. So first up, this is the new Nintendo 3DS XL. I actually bought this recently in 2025. Which feels kind of surreal. We're in a world of OLEDs and massive handheld PCs, and I'm over here getting excited about a clamshell with two screens. But honestly, this thing has so much personality. Even though I completely missed the hype when it was new, the thing about the 3DS is that it's not just a handheld. It feels like a complete era of Nintendo creativity. With the Miis and the Street Passes. It's kind of the last time they tried weird features that were innovative, like dual screens, stereoscopic 3D, Street Pass, Miiverse art, themes, and AR cards. Lately I've been running through 4 games at once kind of. Out of all of them, I think A Link Between Worlds is probably what surprised me the most. It feels like the perfect bridge between old and new Zelda. You got that classic A Link to the Past top-down style, but with a clever wall merge mechanic that completely changes the way you think about the dungeons. It's familiar and brand new at the same time. It's like Nintendo found a way to kind of travel back in time and relive that Link to the Past era. When you want something lighter, I've been running through Super Mario Land 3D. It takes the best parts of 2D Mario and 3D Mario and just blends them together so seamlessly. It's one of those games you can just pick up and play, close the system, and you're in a good mood. You don't have to dedicate too much time. You can have like kind of bite-sized pieces of this game. On the more longer side, I've been playing Pokémon Ultra Sun, which is kind of slept on when it first dropped. Now that I'm older, I appreciate how different Alola region feels. It's sunny, bright, tropical. It's not trying to recreate Kanto for the 10th time. The story is weird in a cool way. The characters have a bit more personality, and some of the Ultra Pokemon designs are really crazy. And then there's Chrono Trigger, which is like a bucket list RPG for a lot of people, including me. I played the original SNES version, but playing it on the 3DS kind of hits different with that dual screen setup that lets you have your combat and menus without the clutter. And then the new Monster Arena, which is kind of like a Pokemon expansion. This is one of those games you can feel the history. Every mechanic inspired like 10 other RPGs. This is definitely gaming DNA for any future RPGs that would come out. And while I'm playing these, I'm also getting deeper into collecting for the system, which is a whole separate adventure. The 3DS library is stacked in a very kind of collector-friendly way. It has a little bit of everything from Nintendo's biggest first-party titles to niche RPGs. Just on the RPG side, I got Bravely Default, which feels like a spiritual successor to the old school Final Fantasy, but then with a clever new job system and their kind of risk-reward combat style. There's also Xenoblade Chronicles 3D, which only works for the new Nintendo 3DS. That alone makes it a very special game. There's a full console RPG on a handheld. It's like a portable Wii experience. There's also Dissidia, which is one of those games you can pour hundreds of hours into if you're just a strategy nerd. Children of Mana is one of those quiet RPGs that people forgot about. It has that Square Enix charm that you grew up on playing on the SNES fantasy style games. And then you got the rabbit hole of Pokemon, which is like its own universe. Every Pokemon game on the 3DS has a fan base. Even the ones people complained about at launch are now climbing in price. You've got X and Y, Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, Sun Moon, Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, and then the rare stuff like the limited editions and dual pack releases. If you're a Pokemon fan, the 3D era is massive. It's almost overwhelming at times. On the Fire Emblem side, this is where the series really exploded. Awakening changed everything, I think. It literally kind of saved the franchise. The Fire Emblem Fates series kind of has it all with Birthright, Conquest, Revelation, which turned the 3DS into the center of kind of the Fire Emblem fandom. These games are becoming collector pieces because they're not just good, they're kind of part of Nintendo's history now. Next up, we got the Game Boy Advance SP. I never had this growing up. This is actually my wife's old one, so discovering it now as an adult collector has been really interesting. The first time I opened it, I finally understood why people say it's one of the best of the handhelds ever made. The clamshell design, the way it snaps, the tiny cartridges, the backlit screens. I remember that's one thing that the original Game Boy never had. Every time I look for something like Fire Red, Metroid Fusion, or Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, the prices are so wild. Like, I'm slowly hunting for each one by one, but in a way, it's kind of cool discovering the console for the first time in 2025. Most people had childhood memories with this thing, but I'm building mine as I guess a collector, collecting for it now. Something that surprised me when I started collecting just as a whole is the expensive Game Boy Advance games. Every time I go to like a convention or a game store, I'm like, there's that moment where I'm like, okay, do I want to eat this week or do I want Fire Red? And I know it shouldn't happen, but some rare times Fire Red wins over Eaten. Now to go even further back, the Game Boy Color. This one I did have growing up, but I didn't collect a bunch of games for it. For me, this console was all about Pokemon Yellow. I had the system, I had the game, and that was kind of my whole world. I'd play it everywhere, car rides, family events, sitting on the floor, staring at that tiny little screen. No backlight, I might add. No massive library, no shelf full of cartridges, just one game. But that was all I needed. Back then, I wasn't all about collecting. I kind of was just into Pokemon as a kid. So when I look at the Game Boy Color now in my collection, it represents kind of something different from the SP. It's not a collector piece to me, it's like my childhood. I didn't have a big Game Boy Color collection growing up. I basically just had Pokemon Yellow. And I remember that one was the one to get because like it has Pikachu right at the start screen. It has him following you all the time, and then you can interact with him. I remember playing on a lot of road trips, like trying not to lose my save because the batteries were about to die, hoping I can get to Pokemon Center before the screen starts fading, and then playing under a lamp because that backlit screen wasn't available back then on the Game Boy Color, so you had to play it right up on a lamp. And then I remember all the rumors and all the kind of secrets, like you can find Mew at this certain location, and if you press A while the Pokeball shakes, it increases your catch rate. So even though I didn't collect for the Game Boy Color back then, this game kind of shaped everything. Every handheld after that, SP, DS, 3DS, they all lived in the shadow of this kind of first adventure. That's why Game Boy Color is kind of like a big part of my collection, even though I never really played anything else but this one game. Now, collecting for the Game Boy Color today is a whole different experience compared to when I was a kid. Back then, all I needed was Yellow. I didn't even think about what else was out there. I just lived inside that game. Today I'm discovering all the stuff I missed, and honestly, it's kind of the magic in it. It feels like I'm working backwards through history, finding all these games that people grew up with and I'm like experiencing for the first time without any nostalgia goggles. Like someone will say, have you tried Oracle of Ages? That's a must play for this. And I never played that, I've never heard of it, but I'll go look it up and suddenly it's interesting and I kind of want it. The wild part is the Game Boy Color doesn't have that massive, expensive collector tax yet, like the GBA has right now. So you can still find cool and reasonable prices for the games at your local game stores or conventions or kind of random garage sales, even Facebook Marketplace. And when I put these kind of colorful handhelds next to my SP, it kind of tells me like it started with yellow and now it goes from SP to the DS to the Switch. It's kind of a cool timeline to have in your collection. Now let's jump ships to the Sony side, the PS Vita. This is a funny one because I bought this Vita on launch. I was hyped for it. The OLED screens, the design, the whole console in your hands pitch. But there's a twist. Almost all my games were digital. Yeah, I didn't really collect physical for this because by the time that the PS3 and the PS4 came out, in between these ones, I was already collecting digital most of my games and buying digital. So kind of today, as a collector in 2025, I'm basically building up my Vita game collection for the first time and kind of discovering the system that I already owned, but I never really invested time for because the PS4 kind of overshadowed that. Finding physical copies of games I used to play digitally feels like full circle. Now I'm finally picking up games I missed at launch. Gravity Rush, Uncharted, Killzone, Final Fantasy games, Ninja Gaiden X. I'm seeing how cool this handheld is from both sides. The one I lived with and the one I'm collecting for now. The only game I really put serious hours back in the day was Persona 4 Golden, which is kind of one of the best RPGs on this system in my opinion. Like the game alone just justified the purchase of the PS Vita. And before the Vita, there was a PSP. I never had the PSP growing up either, so this system has been a brand new adventure for me as well. When I started getting back into collecting handhelds, everyone kind of told me, dude, you need a PSP. Not just for the library, but you can actually mod this thing to be really cool as well. So I picked one up and kind of understood what people were raving about. The screen, the UMD discs, the movie support, the huge library. It was really a portable PlayStation. I'm building that collection up from scratch, which is also really fun. I've already bought and played Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, played a little bit of Crisis Core, Dissidia. Playing these games on a handheld makes it feel like a PS1 and PS2 era games right in your hands. Out of all the systems I'm collecting for now, the PSP is kind of, or probably, the biggest surprise factor. Every time I look at the library, I find another game I want to play. One of my favorite things is hunting PSP games at local game stores. PSP collecting feels like a treasure hunt because the library is huge and a lot of good stuff never really got reprinted anywhere. You're gonna be like flipping through giant plastic bins or looking on shelves, and then suddenly you see a new but familiar game or license, like the Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy VII licenses. I played the mainline versions of them on consoles, but like Birth by Sleep, Crisis Core are new RPGs for me that I never got to play. and like Dissidia. And that's kind of like my whole thing with like buying and collecting for these games. I could just buy all these online, but I like to go to the conventions, I like to go to the stores and then dig through those carts and crates and look for like those gems in the rough, right? It feels like the PSP community is staying alive through these people who never kind of stopped loving it, and now I'm kind of joining that club. But like what's cool about the PSP is that it sits in the sweet spot where it's like old enough to feel retro, but new enough to still play really well. You got like full 3D games, full stories, full experiences, amazing soundtracks, voice acting. It doesn't feel primitive in any other way like you do with like some of the handhelds where they gotta kind of compromise on either the voice acting or something like that. And the prices are surprisingly still good for something like this. You can find classics. Another cool part is the variety of games. PSP has stuff nobody talks about anymore. Weird art JRPGs, unique strategy games, niche fighting games, obscure spin-offs, everything. Every time I look at the PSP kind of game collection, there's something I've never heard of. It's like a weird rabbit hole of titles I've never heard of. But you do also got the big hitters like Metal Gear Solid, Peace Walker, Patapon, Monster Hunter, Valkyrie Chronicles. These are games that like feel like full console experiences. Now let's jump forward to the Switch and Switch 2. These aren't retro, but they're part of the collection because they represent the point where handhelds and consoles kind of finally merged. With the Switch, you could just play massive open world games at home, then pick it up and continue in your bed. Like, that's just crazy, you know? And then the Switch 2 just took that idea further. Performance upgrades, new releases like Pokémon ZA, which I'm playing right now. So the Switch 2 is kind of funny in my setup. Most of the games are digital right now in my setup. I know not exactly what you're expecting from like a collector, but when the Switch era started, it just felt more natural. Everything was right there on the home screen, easy, and the eShop was really easy to traverse. But what I have been doing a lot of, especially recently, is playing the Nintendo Online emulators, like Nintendo 64, GameCube, but especially Game Boy Advance, like Golden Sun. The pacing, the music, the Jin system kind of still holds up in today's kind of JRPG era. And I really like the rewind feature that is built into the kind of Switch and online system. That's something we didn't have growing up. So like if you messed up in a boss fight, you were going to have to go back to a save point, or if you didn't save, you'd have to go all the way back and go through the dungeon again. But here's the thing, as awesome as emulators feel, the library is limited. It's kind of at the mercy of whatever Nintendo decides to port over. So I picked up a physical copy of Pokémon ZA. I was there at the launch, and it feels like the perfect mix between nostalgia and what the Switch can do today with its modern features, like the live battle system. So it's kind of a sweet middle space right now for digital for convenience, physical for kind of that heart and feeling, and Nintendo Online for like the classics. It's just interesting. I started collecting retro handhelds because I miss physical media, and somehow the Switch 2 has kind of pulled me back into collecting too as well, because I'm seeing all these retro games and then I'm seeing all these modern games, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, I can pick up that old retro game, but I can also pick up this new Switch 2 game, just so I'm covered for the future. And now, to bring it all together, I wanted to display everything clean, not hidden, or in plastic drawers or bins, so I picked up the HOMCOM 5-story wall shelf display cabinet, just from Amazon. It's simple, but it's kind of perfect for these handhelds and how much I have right now. kind of 5 shelves for each different era, right? So on one shelf I got the Nintendo stuff with the Nintendo 3DS, the Switch, and the Game Boy Color, and then on the second shelf I have Sony with like the Sony PSP and the Vita. I love walking into the room and seeing it like placed on there. It's kind of like those display cases you see at the conventions when you see that, and then they have that glass shelving. As I collect more, I love to add to this. Maybe add some lighting into it as well. But for right now, it's just very clean and displayed, and it's easily accessible and at arm's length's reach, because whatever I feel like playing, maybe Nintendo or Sony, I can just grab it and play. So that was my retro handheld collection in 2025. Some of these systems are older, and then some of them people are playing right now. Some of them are brand new. Some people are even modding these, which I want to get into, but kind of that's another time. I'm quite content with just collecting physical right now. But these handhelds aren't kind of just devices. They're like comfort, they're memories. They're little worlds you can carry with you everywhere. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Hit that bell notification for updates. We out.